What's up, y'all? We have a wonderful guest who's also an immigration attorney. So she has a wealth of knowledge to share with you in case you're in a situation like this. Within the 15 years, she has practiced representing clients from family-based immigration, employment-based, representing companies, asylum, and deportation defense. So although we do have some overlap, that's completely okay. We love sharing information with each other and also helping you with the best interest of a client to help you get legal status. She's also passionate about education advocacy, which fits right in with us here at Green Card Guys. She's a frequent speaker at conferences and community events, especially these days under the Trump administration. There's a lot more information to share. So let's go ahead and bring on Kristen Wilson.
Hi guys, how are you? Hey John.
Hi. So, I know, thank you so much for your time. Our time is much more limited these days under Trump 2.0, but and although we can go into detail about that, we'll save that for a different show. We want to obviously provide value to our audience here, who is trying to seek immigration status, even from the employer perspective. So thanks so much.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. We are definitely facing challenges these days, but there are still a lot of immigration programs that are still intact. And one of the ones I'd love to talk to you guys about today is the H-2B visa program. I know a lot of employers are considering this program since other immigration programs are taking a while, and this is an opportunity for those employers to hire people in seasonal positions.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I was intrigued when we corresponded and met each other. I think last October, November. You mentioned you have experience on H-2A and H-2B. Green card guys, we've never worked on that because I know it's a different beast. We know the alphabet soup with immigration visas. It's almost like their own practice area. So, would you be able to share with us some, if you can just go straight to it, like some of the common mistakes that maybe the employers may have, or even the applicant?
Yeah, so I think the primary thing with the H-2A and H-2B visa programs is, planning ahead and actually timing your application properly for when there are actually visas available. For the H-2B visa program, there's only 66,000 visas that are available annually for the program, and those are divided up into two buckets of 33,000 and 33,000 for particular start dates of your application. So you do have to plan at least 120 days in advance of the time when you want workers in the US to prepare all of your documentation, file the first stage of the process, and generally just be ready to submit anything that's necessary for the application. Besides timing, I would say the second thing is as a business owner, having really good record keeping in your company. You need to have your US company actually registered with the Secretary of State and fully formed. And then you also need to have really good payroll record keeping records to ensure that you can provide the documentation that immigration wants to see for these applications. And that's generally going to be 2 years of payroll records for the occupation that you seek to fill. So if you're just getting started, or you haven't really started to officially track payroll at your company, that's something you're going to want to get in order before you even consider the program. And we can make some recommendations and guide you on how to do that so that you're in the best position to get approved for the H-2B or H-2A program.
When you said payroll, I get the feeling because we've had a couple of clients in the past that, we use Gusto payroll and there's other programs like that. I think that's what you mean, right? Have it more legitimate in that sense, streamlined, because some people do the old school check and have that little stub and are like, I don't think that's going to cut it with USCIS or State Department. I get the sense, of course, when you mention those requirements and have type of evidence, USCIS or State Department, they want to make sure it's a legitimate, bona fide employer.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the first steps that we take in the H-2B and H-2A processes is to verify this documentation with an employer and make sure that you are actually incorporated, you are a U.S. employer under the regulations, and you have documentation to prove that should you be asked by the Department of Labor to verify. If you're in that position and you don't feel like you're ready, you can definitely reach out to us, and we can guide you on how to make sure you have all the proper documentation to get started on one of these applications.
Kristen, thank you so much for sharing that. Most people think of immigration as something like when they think about it, like, okay, now I can hire an attorney, meaning like, can we just file it the next day? There's a lot of planning ahead that most people don't think about, right? And they think it's just a bunch of forms, no big deal, walk in the park kind of deal. But you and I have both our law firms have seen some unfortunate requests for evidence or even denials because
Yeah,
they didn't plan ahead.
exactly.
Well, since we are in the second month of the Trump administration, I find it a little timely to ask you this. Of course, during each presidency, there could be some ebb and flow or different trends. Do you, by any chance, foresee any different trend with the Trump administration?
Yeah, so I think for H-2A and H-2B employers, you can definitely expect to see more scrutiny on applications in terms of proving that you have a seasonal need for the workers that you're requesting. Both H-2A and H-2B are seasonal programs, so you're going to have to prove something called temporary need. And the Department of Labor has long used that as a reason to deny applications. But I think we're going to see some significant pushback on that. Also, I think there's going to be some heightened attention to compliance for the programs. Participants in H-2A or H-2B programs have to follow several rules to be compliant. That includes things that they do preparing for the program, while they're in the program, and then once workers have departed. So, working with an experienced immigration lawyer that can guide you through those processes and make sure that you're doing all the right things is really essential if you're going to participate. And then I think the most significant thing that we can foresee on at least the H-2B front is there is recommendation to the current administration to not increase the visa numbers for the coming years. In the last few years, because of the demand for the program, H-2B specifically, Department of Homeland Security has increased the number of visas each year. This last year, we got 64,000 additional visas in addition to the 66,000 that are available. And even those visas were not enough for everyone who applied, but it made a substantial difference in the program and expanded the opportunity of filing for so many employers. If those visas are not granted for this next fiscal year, the program is going to substantially change, and employers are going to have to come up with different hiring strategies and staffing plans for their companies if they
Right,
are not able to rely on this labor.
right. You've been playing way more ahead in that sense, at least. They were able to increase the number of visas. Do you know? I know a lot of people like to ask why. I mean, we can't understand the government in that sense, but were they able to increase the visas because of the past fiscal years weren't used? Is something related to that, you think?
No, it was just a direct recommendation by the Department of Homeland Security to increase. There's been a lot of push in DC for these programs to be adjusted because we haven't actually seen a regulatory change to the program in many, many years. Really, what kind of propelled that is post COVID, we've seen changes in staffing in general,
Mhm.
especially in what immigration calls unskilled positions, and there isn't enough sufficient US workforce to fill these jobs. So
Right.
the stopgap to that is to expand the H-2B program. This recommendation for these additional temporary visas allowed us to kind of have a little bit of relief. But at the end of the day, the program needs to be expanded in general. 66,000 visas for seasonal workers in the US is just not enough.
Well, this seems like it dates back to George W. Bush. If I recall, he had some kind of proposal for a guest worker program. And when you're talking about this, like seasonal, it makes me think about that long, long ago. I only really honestly remember that history because I was going to write a law review article about that, and I
Mhm.
pivoted different topic. But that's it. Like you know this area. Clearly, I didn't because I asked how it increased the visas, and I was thinking like employment based or family preference categories set by Congress. But so that's good to know. There's a possibility to increase, but with a given administration, that's not going to happen. For your client avatar, I guess you can say, or I know that it's difficult to say common employer client, but how far in advance should they, like HR, plan ahead? With
Yeah, so
application estimated timing.
as soon as you realize you have a need for additional workers in your business, reach out immediately to an immigration lawyer to assess the possibility of bringing workers in. But Generally speaking, you should plan to file your application about 120 days before you want the workers to be on the ground and starting their work for your season. The reason we recommend that amount of time is there's a couple things that have to happen before the workers actually get here. We will first file something called a prevailing wage application, which is essentially a request to the Department of Labor outlining the job you want the workers to perform. And once the Department of Labor sees that, they're going to recommend a wage that these workers need to be paid. And once that document is valid, only then can you submit your actual request for an H-2B application. In the H-2A context, there is something called an agricultural clearance order or an ETA 790. That document is also going to have to be filed first before you can even begin the labor certification process for H-2B or H-2A. There's a number of things that have to be kind of put in order before you can really get started. And on the government side, we can also see delays. So the sooner you start, the better position you're going to be in to get your workers on time on the date that you're expecting them to arrive.
Kristen, thank you for sharing that because I know that's a lot more detail and people, yeah, most clients don't understand what's all involved. They just think it's just paperwork, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
process. And I'm familiar with the prevailing wage related to like EB and H-1B. Is it? It's funny. I want to ask this. I sound like a client. How quick is it? The million-dollar question. How quick is the
Yeah.
prevailing wage determination?
Yeah. So the prevailing wage for the H-2B program specifically, that's the one you're going to file it for. It's actually an accelerated process. So it takes 45 to 60 days, which is very unlike permanent labor certifications. The DOL knows that these programs are time sensitive, so they actually accelerate processing of the H-2B prevailing wage specifically. So the 120-day recommendation kind of allows time for that document to come in and to be fully certified. But yeah, first step is going to take you at a minimum 45 days to process. And that's not including all of our strategy work that we're going to do in
Right.
advance of preparing that document.
Can that determination be issued before the 120 days?
No. So you must have your prevailing wage
That's
first,
really tight timing.
and then it needs to be certified and valid at the time that you file your application. And then the H-2B application specifically has to be filed at a particular time period. Same with H-2A. You'll have your agricultural clearance order, and then there are timed steps that need to be taken directly after that to get to full certification or approval of your application.
Wow, yeah, a lot more planning ahead than I thought initially when we started
Yeah.
this show. So what's like knowing that these type of jobs are supposed to be temporary in nature? Would you be able to share like a couple examples of industry or
Mhm.
a type of business? So those in the audience who are business owners or thinking to invest, like e-visa and start a business, they'll have an idea.
Yeah, so the most common industries that utilize the H-2A program obviously are agricultural employers, so they're farmers and other employers that supplement some part of the agricultural process. And then on the H-2B front, your most common industries, you're really going to see a lot of construction companies utilizing the H-2B program, hospitality companies, which includes hotels, restaurants, particular resorts in seasonal dependent areas, and then the other big bucket is landscaping. Landscaping happens on a seasonal basis when it's warmer outside,
Mm.
and these employers utilize the H-2B program in great numbers each year.
Okay, well, yeah, I had not thought about all the wide-ranging industries, so thanks for sharing that. So, for anyone watching this later on, go to the description box. If you know someone who may need to apply for H-2A or H-2B, please go to the description box down below, and Kristen Wilson's information, her law firm website is down there. You don't have to contact us before contacting her. You
Mhm.
can go straight to the source of her website, her law firm. Any last few I know there's so much to share, Kristen, but
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that sounds like, almost like they need to plan at least 2 to 3 months ahead before filing that first step, prevailing
Yeah,
wage.
so if they can reach out 6 months in advance of when they need people, that's going to put us probably in the best position. But we do have some strategies to get workers at various times during the year. So I wouldn't be, discouraged from reaching out to see if you're eligible to file now or later for workers. We will figure something out strategically to have people staffed at your business at the right time during the year. It just may take
Right.
some pre-planning, as we've talked about.
Well, you know what? I would say that anyone who's watching this, considering this, because especially if you have a business, that to figure out that timing, that planning ahead, that strategy plan, contact Kristen first. As soon as you consider it, just contact her law firm, and then y'all can plan ahead with the plan, strategy action plan. So, thank you so much, Kristen. I know you're very busy these days, like us, and
Thank you.
we'll have you on next time.
Yeah, no, it was great meeting you guys, and feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.